Today is Saturday, August 17th. There are fewer babies born in the United States these days than in years past. But is it all about choice, or could there be medical reasons too? Today, we're talking about the fall of the fertility rate and the rise of IVF, even as the availability of that treatment might be at risk. Our guest today is fertility specialist Dr. Natalie Crawford. She's board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology, as well as in reproductive endocrinology and infertility. She's the co-founder of a fertility practice in Austin, Texas, and the host of the popular podcast, As a Woman, Fertility, Hormones, and Beyond. Today, she's sharing why some couples struggle with fertility, if there's a specific age where chances of conceiving really do drop significantly for both women and men. And we talk all about IVF, from exactly what it involves to why it's sometimes put in the same conversation as abortion. That and more coming up. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Dr. Natalie Crawford, thank you so much for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
Thank you so much for having me. Honored to be here.
So statistics show Americans are having fewer children than ever before. For example, the CDC says the total fertility rate fell to its lowest recorded rate ever last year. It was 1.62 births per woman in her childbearing years. So first of all, I want to be clear. Is this driven by choice, or are women and or men less physically able to have kids now compared to previous generations, or is it a combination?
We know that worldwide fertility rates are decreasing, and we are seeing increased in infertility and need for assisted reproductive technology like IVF. So that is across the board, not just in the US. We are seeing in the US specifically that people are waiting later to start their family, having their first child later in life, therefore decreasing the probability that they're going to have enough reproductive time to have as many children as they may have had in the past. In addition to seeing things like a decrease in sperm count across men. We are seeing sperm parameters worsen. We are seeing increase in, autoimmune and inflammatory disorders. So I really do think that people having a smaller family is a combination of choice, economics, getting started later, but also due to a lot of the world that we live in, environment, disease, and maybe not fully having a great understanding of some of those infertility warning signs in our body.
You mentioned we're waiting later. How much of it do you think is that age factor, waiting longer before even trying to have children? And is there kind of a magic number or age when it actually does become harder for most women to get pregnant?
Most people still have eggs and ovulate up till, their mid-40s. What starts to happen is our egg quality starts to drop dramatically as we get older. And we really statistically see this drop start to really happen once you're 37 and older. At 35, yes, you have more abnormal eggs than you did when you were younger, but most of the time that is not relating with exactly having infertility. But what is happening is if you're waiting later to start your family, and maybe you have your first child at 35, now suddenly you're 37, 38, 39 if you want to have a second child. And we know your egg quality is significantly decreased, meaning there's an increased rate of genetic abnormality, an increased rate of miscarriage, a decreased rate of getting pregnant, and even a decreased rate of success with fertility treatments like IVF. So one thing that we're seeing is that if you want to have 2 children, you really should be starting that first child around age 27 to 29, which is younger than most people think. So can you get pregnant at an older age? You're just increasing the odds that you're going to need fertility treatment in order to accomplish that. And if you're single, you don't have your partner, maybe you're not quite ready, you're chasing a career goal. If we look at freezing your eggs, which is an option, the success rates are highest if you are doing that when you have good egg quality and good egg number. So studies are telling us that the best time to consider that is really around age 32 to 33, which is earlier than a lot of people think that they should be considering that.
I imagine you get some pushback when you talk about this because it can be really frustrating. And I'm sure there's plenty of examples of people who had no issues at an older age. What's your response when you get that?
Yes, I always hear people say, I got pregnant at 41, or my aunt, or this person or that person. And somebody's single person experience, fantastic. Even very small probabilities of success across a population a 3% chance per month at age 40 or higher of getting pregnant, that is not zero. That means there are people who it's going to happen to. But if you are waiting to grow your whole family, if having that child is an essential life goal, then a 3% per month chance should be concerning. And we really should be thinking about how can we improve upon numbers like that.
Is that an actual number, 3% for 40 and older?
If you're studying to have your first child, you have no children, and you're starting at age 40 or older, then your rate of success is going to be a 3% chance per month.
And what does it drop down from when you're talking about, 35 to 37 and on?
So what's really interesting when we look at the data is really having to compare if you've had a child before or if you haven't. So if you're trying to start your first child and you're age 35 to 37, you're looking about 11 to 12% chance per month. So contrast that to maybe age 30 when it's about 20% per month. And remember, even at our peak fertility, when we're really young and very healthy, we don't see more than a 20 to 25% chance per month. But most people who are 35 and younger, if you're trying to get pregnant, will get pregnant in the first 6 months of trying. A small subset will get pregnant in those next 6 months. But if you are young and you've been trying a year or two, that's an indication that something is wrong. When we look at people who've already had a child or had multiple children, they have higher rates of conception at an older age, largely because we know certain things work, their fallopian tubes are open, their body can implant a pregnancy, their partner has sperm. And so if you're 35 to 37 trying for your second child, your chance of getting pregnant is closer to 15 to 16% per month. And if you're 40, it's closer to 5 to 10% per month. So it's not that it's quite as dramatic, but we really get concerned about that person waiting to start their whole family as they're getting into their mid and late 30s, especially if they want to have more than one child.
Does fertility tend to decrease with age for men?
Fertility does decrease with age for men. It's not talked about quite as much. One thing that's so strikingly different between male fertility and female fertility, women are born with all the eggs we're ever going to have. And I always use an analogy talking about imagining that your eggs are in a vault inside your ovary, and every single month there's a group of them available, and one will ovulate, the rest will die. But eventually the vault will run out, but also our eggs do absorb the wear and tear of our life. Men make brand new sperm every single day. They make 1,500 sperm per second on average. So they are just generating new sperm. And the lifespan of a sperm is about 3 months from starting to develop until being in the ejaculate. So a man might be able to make very big lifestyle changes or have one single exposure, and it has a transient impact that can be recovered later. But even in men, we do see that with age. We see increased DNA damage to the sperm, increased rates of miscarriage, decreased fertility rates. And men do go through a male menopause too, where they do stop sperm production and they stop making testosterone. But it's just generally at such a later age than women go through. It's not relevant to the fertility talk as often.
What age are we talking when they start to see differences?
Typically, it's about age 50 and above for having male age-related infertility factors. But of course, everybody's on their own journeys. That's not a hard, fast number. But that's definitely older than 37 and above as we start to see for women.
For anybody who is struggling with fertility, what is the top sign that it's time to see a doctor or get treatments? And 2, what are some of your top recommendations, both from a medical standpoint and maybe from a lifestyle or lesser known aspect, to help with your fertility?
If you have irregular cycles, if you have a lot of spotting in your cycles or severe pain with your period, those things are not normal. We are seeing a generation of women who've been on contraception, and so their period has not been able to be a true vital sign like they like to think about it. And so stop that contraception 3 or 6 months before you want to get pregnant. Allow your body time to show you what your period cycle is going to be. And if it's not regular and predictable, you should go get an evaluation sooner than later. I also think some things that people are not always aware of when it comes to lifestyle choices is that anything that causes inflammation, is a toxin to your body and can impact both egg quality and sperm quality. So things like vaping, smoking, marijuana, frequent alcohol use, refined sugar, processed foods, being overweight, not controlling your other medical conditions like diabetes. Those things all play a huge role in the environment of our body and the stress our body is under. So even though that might not be the only thing, if we are trying to optimize your chance of success, you really should pay attention to what you put in and on and how you treat your body to try to have the easiest journey possible, especially if you're getting started potentially a little bit later.
Well, next up, we're talking all about IVF, in vitro fertilization. Dr. Crawford explains the process, the odds of success, and the politics surrounding IVF. That conversation is coming up. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. I love to try new things and just see what happens. And for some things, that is great. It does not require a lot of research or care to, try a new workout class or check out whatever restaurant you find along the way. But when it comes to choosing a doctor, I don't want that choice to be a total crapshoot. Thanks to ZocDoc, whenever I need a new doctor, I can be sure I'm quickly and easily finding and reviewing all the best options. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skincare, and much more. I always at least check ZocDoc and consider the options there when I'm looking for a new doctor. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you focus on what you do best while turning browsers into buyers. That's the sound you could get used to hearing as the sales come in with Shopify, because Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. In fact, it's the internet's best converting checkout. I'm talking 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Plus, even if you think you're not tech-savvy, you can sell without needing to code or design. And Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/newsworthy, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/newsworthy to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/newsworthy. Now back to our conversation. I want to talk a little bit about IVF. You mentioned it's become more prevalent. Can you talk about any of the numbers or data that you have in terms of how many more people are getting IVF now than they used to? And also just briefly explain what IVF is for anyone who's not familiar.
IVF, the way I like to describe it in its shortest fashion, is if we can imagine that 1 month, as I said, you have one group of eggs available. We try to get all of those eggs to grow instead of letting your body just pick one at random to ovulate. So you take hormone shots to get these eggs to grow. We then take them out of your body in a quick procedure, and we're able to directly fertilize them with sperm in the IVF lab, grow the embryo out to a day 5 stage, which is an implantation stage. We can do genetic testing on the embryo to find out which embryos have the right number of chromosomes or might be missing chromosomes and more prone to miscarriage. And then we can transfer an embryo of the highest potential into a partner when the time is right. And you can also save embryos for the future, which can be great for family planning, if you're trying to grow your family at an older age, if you potentially have to go through, medical treatment or cancer diagnosis. Being able to have embryos stored can really expand your opportunities for family growth. And we see now that, 2% of the US population of births are IVF births now. So we definitely know IVF is increasing. That is both because of increased access, more training, more IVF clinics, also increase in insurance coverage, and just generalized knowledge where people might in the past say, I can't get pregnant, but there's not much I can do about it. As people are sharing their stories and talking about infertility and talking about IVF, they are lessening the burden and the stigma, and they're helping other people know that this is an option that might be able to help them.
And I'm sure there's a lot of factors that go into it, but can you give us a general idea of success outcomes or the percentage of success with IVF?
Trying to determine the success with IVF is a difficult question because a lot of people want to say, well, for a cycle of IVF, what are my odds of success? And the reality is your number of genetically normal embryos that you make is largely going to determine your success. And the number of genetically normal embryos is dependent on your age, how many eggs you have, and a lot of your other medical history. For one genetically normal embryo, we see a 65% chance of live birth. After 2 embryo transfers, not 2 embryos at once, but a single embryo, and if it didn't work, you went on to a second transfer, now the cumulative success rate is 88%. And after 3, the cumulative success rate is 95%. So if you have 3 genetically normal embryos, 95% of people are going to achieve success with that. Now, what will it take for a single person to have 3 genetically normal embryos? That might be 1 month's group of eggs if you're 32. That might be 3 separate rounds of IVF, 3 different months if you're 38 or 39. So the journey to get to that place might really look different.
And I don't want to get too political for this episode, but I am curious your perspective if you think the availability of IVF is still at risk anywhere in the country since Roe v. Wade was overturned, or has that risk at this point been overblown?
I think it's very important that everybody understands that IVF is absolutely on the ballot in November. IVF is in the spectrum of reproductive rights, and if we look at different abortion bills and restrictions on women's health, they're trying to tie things together with definitions that may or may not be based in science, but looking at words like conception, fertilization, implantation, and these things have a scientific meaning, and they are all very important in the IVF process. I think at the exact moment, it's also important to know that certain people are trying to determine if a fertilized egg has personhood rights is truly what threatens IVF the most. Right now, IVF is continuing as it has in all states. However, a lot of states are putting this on the ballot as an independent measure. Who you vote into office, both at your state level and nationally, matters so much.
And just to be clear, can you talk about why it is in the same conversation as abortion? It comes down to what you mentioned, the definition of, let's say, an embryo. Can you explain that just a little bit?
When we go through IVF, we have eggs and sperm, and we're putting them together in the IVF lab. And the day after we take the eggs out of the body, they are fertilized eggs now, and they are growing to the embryo stage. And typically they're frozen around day 5, which is that normal stage of implantation. So that embryo, as we said, even a genetically normal one only has a 65% chance of turning in to a potential pregnancy when we put it inside a mother. But if we give that embryo personhood rights, and we saw this happen in Alabama earlier this year, it starts to really beg the question, if once it's fertilized, can you freeze it? Can you biopsy it to do the genetic testing? What happens in the 1% that we know not every embryo is going to survive when you go to thaw it? If that embryo has personhood rights, what liability are you, your clinic, your staff, your embryologist taking on? And that leads to a bigger question about, will your medical liability insurance cover this? Is it safe to keep embryos on site? And in Texas, for example, where I practice, in our actual trigger bill and the abortion ban that went into place after Roe was overturned, there is definitions about what defines personhood, and it's at fertilization, which is egg and sperm coming together. There's an actual IVF carve-out that allows IVF to continue, and they had to put that language in there in order to allow IVF to happen, because otherwise it really brings to question mark if those embryos have full personhood rights. Can you do some of the things that really are required to try to help somebody get pregnant in the safest way possible when it comes to IVF?
Any final thought to leave us with today?
My final thought is just, if you are trying to conceive or you're having infertility, that you're not alone. A lot of people are sharing their story that by no means that you have to, but it's your right to understand how your body works, to know what's going on, and to understand your treatment options. Please see a fertility doctor if you haven't. It's your life, your fertility, your future family, and you deserve to be the one who's in control.
So to be clear on the politics side of in vitro fertilization, both top presidential candidates have said they support IVF access. Though Senate Republicans recently blocked a bill Democrats tried to pass that would have protected IVF access nationwide. Instead, Republicans offered an alternative bill that would have discouraged states from explicitly banning IVF, which Democrats then voted down. Of course, we'll continue to keep you updated as this issue and many others play out, leading up to Election Day and beyond, with our 10-minute daily news roundups every weekday. And if you found this special edition episode interesting or helpful, be sure to share it with a friend. And thanks again to Dr. Natalie Crawford for sharing her expertise. For more info from her, check out her podcast called As a Woman, Fertility, Hormones, and Beyond. She also offers educational resources on her website, YouTube channel, and social media channels. We have links to all of that on our website at thenewsworthy.com. All right, we'll be back on Monday with the news you need to know to start your week. Until then, have a great weekend.